So, from my Nectar arc video, doing surprisingly well for an arc that I thought was kind of terrible, I'm gonna try and do more rambly-ish videos where I just kind of, start a video with a topic in mind and kind of just go. I don't know. I guess rambling makes more interesting content than me just describing the plot of something. So yeah. So, recently, I watched The Eminence, and I believe it's The Eminence in Shadow. I've just been calling it, Eminence in Shadow, or, Eminence, just because, as usual with isekai titles, it's it's somewhat long. I mean, not as bad as, what the fuck was the assassin isekai called? That time I got, I don't even fucking, the world's finest assassin gets reincarnated as an aristocrat, you fucking know. Yeah, I if you've been a fan of this channel for the entire lifetime of it and seen the content I make, you know that I am not, I guess the purveyor of the best anime and manga out there. I mean, I like Fairy Tail. So my standards are as rock bottom as rock bottom. I have some standards, I don't like Naruto or MHA, but, I've liked pretty much every other anime and manga that I've read. And that included isekais. Just before I get into, talking about the Eminence and Shadow, isekais get a really bad rap, but I mean, they're kind of I don't know, they're kind of like the McDonald's of anime. If you turn your brain off and just watch it, it's enjoyable. But I will say some have pretty good plots. I would say, Tensura is pretty entertaining. Can't wait for season 3. But, yeah, my friend who recommends me a lot of series, he watched the first couple episodes of Eminence and Shadow, and I was doing nothing Saturday, so we decided to get into VC and watch the whole series. I think both of us only watched 15 episodes, and then I finished the last 5. So, yeah, and I've basically been thinking about it constantly, so I was debating, I was going to do a video yesterday on it, but I kind of debated against it, but today I'm doing nothing, so I'm just fuck it, why not? So, some ground rules here. Eminence and Shadow is a light novel series published by, I believe the author is Daisuke Aizawa. I don't know if he's done any other works. It's actually, I thought Eminence and Shadow would have been a longer series, but no, apparently it's only got 5 volumes out, and it's only been releasing volumes since 2018. So, I mean, that's the same year JJK came out, so I mean, not that old of a series. I know the web novel, a lot of light novels in Japan, they start as web novels on the internet, SAO, Overlord, Tensura, and this one all started as web novels on the internet, just self-published. I know Mushoku Tensei also started as that. Weirdly, that I don't make a video on Mushoku Tensei, but I make a video on this. I don't know. I might make a video on Mushoku Tensei when season 2 comes out. I don't know. That's also, if you're gonna watch any isekai, watch Mushoku Tensei, it's really good. Good. I don't know, yeah, keep your expectations. But, yeah. I mainly wanted to watch this series. My friend and me both had an interest in it, but my friend watching, he's like, you should watch it, you'll enjoy it. But I also heard, a lot of things about it, every week I heard people talking about the series. I think Chibi Reviews, he made videos on it every week, and, a lot of people, after it ended, have been making these videos, the best trashy isekai, or, the next good garbage isekai is here. And, the reputation the series has received due to that. Okay, so, I will play devil's advocate here and slightly defend Eminence and Shadow, but the series, but to just, before we get into my thoughts on this series, Eminence and Shadow follows a character by the name of Sid Kageno. I think his name was Minoru Kageno when he was alive. And he, of course, I didn't even know Eminence and Shadow was I saw the posters and visuals for the show, and I'm okay, so it's just a fantasy series. I didn't even know it was an isekai until I heard people talk about it and said it was an isekai, and I'm oh, I didn't even know it was an isekai. Sid is I'll talk about him in a minute, but he's a unique individual. Basically, in this world, he kind of lives multiple lives. he lives life as like Sid Kageno, a student at the Royal Academy in the capital of, I believe the kingdom is Midgard or Midgar. I thought when I first started watching, I thought all the kingdom. I thought the joke with all the kingdoms was going to be they were going to be named and kind of based on all the different realms in Norse mythology, because Midgard's very clearly Midgard. But he also somewhat leads an organization, an underground organization by the name of Shadow Garden, which is a very cool name, I will say. So yeah, and the series kind of goes from there, kind of seeing like his double life, how to Sid live his life, and how to Shadow intervene with that. So yeah. Again, I put the disclaimer at but spoilers for the first season. I know vague events of the light novel, at least like season 3, at least like volume 3 of what happens, because there's two characters. I know what happens to them. So first, before I talk about anything else, Sid. Okay, so a common critique people give Sid is, he's an over dramatic edgelord. He's an absolute edgelord. But like, that's kind of the point. Like, again, I can see why people do not like Sid. He is very much that, people don't like Shinibyo characters, those characters that are very, very, anime. It's probably, they're the most anime of anime characters, if that makes sense. They're, when, like, normal normies when normal people think of anime, like, anime characters, they picture edgelords, like, characters like Sasuke. Yes, Sasuke is an edgelord. He is. Don't argue he isn't. What's her name in Haruhi? I forget her fucking name, but the black-haired chick with the eye patch, and I believe Haruhi Suzumiya is the anime she's from. Characters that are very... Their personality is they are edgelords. They are edgy. You could definitely see Shadow as an edgelord, but that's kind of intentional. Sid is very much someone who is overdramatic. Sid is a theater kid, essentially. He's someone who loves theatrics, he loves playing a role. Like, it's seen, basically, he lives different lives, and that's the intention. It's like, it's kind of these masks. You have Sid Kageno, the normie for all intents and purposes, Sid wants Sid Kageno to be an absolute background, the most background of background characters. Essentially, just a background character, which, yeah, is a bit cringe to hear, an anime character talk about background characters, plot progressing, and main characters. But, like, I mean, to be fair, Sid is from our world, so, like, and if he did get isekai in, like, 2018, then yeah, he would be, he's from our modern day, so yeah. It's also funny how Sid gets isekai, because the majority of the first episode focuses on a character named Akane Nishino, and kind of her hatred for Sid, and we kind of get, we get a lot of her personality, which I feel like she's going to play a role later in the series, because I think something goes on later in this, I don't know. I don't want to talk about events I vaguely know about, like with Tuaru. Also, I will say, this anime only adapts, I think, like, 2 volumes, which, damn, can we get that pacing for Tuaru, please? I mean, sure, the series would have to have, like, 30 seasons to actually adapt the whole light novel, but, like, it'd be good, though. It's also very weird that this series only has, like, 20 episodes. I assume that's a budgetary thing, because the usual anime cores are, it's 12 or 13 episodes for one core, or 24 or 26 episodes for 2 cores. Or 27. Somewhere, and there rarely do you see, like, 20, unless it's, like, a kind of a weirder anime. I assume that's for budgetary reasons. But, yeah, it's like, Sid himself is kind of like a norm. He kind of wants to play the role of a boring background, everyday character, and I think that's also why his design is so simple. Sid does join the rows of characters that are just Kirito lights, characters that are just, they look like Kirito, but I feel like with Sid it's kind of intentional, because like, Sid himself, he wants to be kind of that background character. And there's multiple moments that are funny with him trying to be that background character, and sometimes him failing tremendously, like him losing a bet with 2 of his friends. This author also loves his puns, because there's a lot of there's a lot of characters with, like, pun names. But yeah. But yeah, there's, like, he loses a bet with two of his friends, and he has to confess to, like, the most popular girl in the school, Alexia Midgar, who's one of the princesses of the kingdom. We'll get into Alexia in a minute. Her character at the beginning I didn't really like that much, but towards the end, but by the end of the season I thought she was a pretty cool character. Basically, Sid wants to do a super embarrassing, like, you know, like, please be my girlfriend thing, and her to just utterly reject him, and then she accepts him only because she doesn't want to be in an arranged marriage. Let's say at the beginning is kind of a bitch, but after, there's a thing I will talk about at the end of the video. You know, the thing with Sid and Shadow. The moments. I'm saving that for the very end because, you know, they're the thing everyone knows from this anime. So yeah. And then you have, like, but yeah, that's Sid. He's a very, he wants to be a very background character. It doesn't help that he falls in love with, like, doesn't help that he has, like, three women crushing on him accidentally. You know, he has Alexia crushing on him still. Sherry, who, I'm not going to touch on much, but, that last scene with her in episode 20, yeah, that's what I feared. And then, you know, Rose, Oriana, which, it's also very funny that I go from talking about Oriana in 2R to talking about another Oriana in another light novel series. Kind of funny how things work out that way. But yeah, but with Shadow also, I kind of, like, I was critiquing Sid. I'm like, okay, come on, for, like, your alter ego, like, over dramatic, you know, kind of villainous character. The best name you could have come up with is Shadow. I don't know. Though it is kind of cool that it is said in, like, English, so it's not, they don't say, like, Kage, which is the typical way you say, like, Shadow in Japanese, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Kage is, like, the most simple way of saying Shadow in Japanese. They say, like, Shadow. There's also a lot of English phrases in this anime. Sid speaks a lot of English, which is funny. But yeah. Though the funniest thing is, so Shadow is the leader of this organization called Shadow Garden, which is essentially founded on bullshit. Because, you know, Sid rescued this, when Sid was younger, he rescued this one girl named Alpha, who he named Alpha, who is an elf, and he came up with an entire, she was essentially possessed. I'm not really sure what the possessed are supposed to be. They're like people infected with demon cells, so they turn like these blobs of just bloated, like, magical messes. He heals her, and he comes up with a whole story of, like, oh yes, you're the descendant of one of the three heroes, and you were cursed by the cult of Diabolos. And, like, Sid/Shadow thinks he's talking absolute bullshit, but the cult's real, and Alpha is the descendant of one of the three heroes. Which is one of my favorite tropes in anime, when a character is talking such bullshit, such just utter lies, that the character themselves knows this is a lie, and it's like, okay, yeah, this isn't real. And then the character finds out that's like, there is a cult of Diabolos. But yeah, and I will say the one critique I will give the earlier episodes, this is better because the pacing is slower later on, but Sid's younger years and, like, him forming Shadow Garden with the Seven Shadows, I'm not going to talk about them much. The only two that I think are really relevant, the only three that do a lot this season are Alpha, Beta, and Delta, because Alpha shows up the most because she's essentially the second in command, and when Sid is just being Sid, she's basically the acting leader of Shadow Garden. Beta, because she has a lot of scenes. I'll also get into the funny things about her. Which, Eminence and Shadow is also a very funny series, because there were multiple moments where me and my friend cracked up. Like, I'll talk about this now. Beta is an author. Basically, as her day job, she's an author called Natsumi Kafka. I don't know if that's a reference to anyone. Probably is. And she writes. She's a famous author. So there's this arc where Sid and Rose go to the holy city, Lindworm, and, you know, Natsumi is there signing copies, and Sid just looks at all the books, and it's like one person, Romeo and Julieta, Asherella, and he just realizes, wait a second, because Sid just, when he was younger, he rambled off, like, famous stories important to literature and, like, anime and manga, and then Beta just took that and then just wrote several series, most likely with her and Shadow as self-inserts, because, Beta's kind of gimmick joke is that, she constantly writes fanfics about Shadow and her, which is funny. So, like, I imagine all the books she writes, like, the main male character is Shadow, and the main female character is just her. I don't know. I like stuff like that. There's also another case of plagiarism with another one of the 7, where, Epsilon, is a famous piano player, and all her songs are just songs from our world, like Moonlight, like, the one that Shadow likes a lot, Moonlight Sonata, and Sid/Shadow's just like, this is just plagiarism. Then again, I will say, like, is it technically plagiarism if the work doesn't exist in the world yet? I don't know. But yeah. Fuck, what was I talking about? So yeah, the earlier bits is we don't really get to see the forming of Shadow Garden. The events that we see are, we see Alpha. We see Sid rescue Alpha. Sid has a sister named Claire. She gets kidnapped, and then that's when we get to see Sid do some stuff, you know. Also, Sid and all the shadows all the 7 shadows use, like, a weird slime thing for a weapon and outfits. They mainly make just swords out of it. I will say the general outfits and aesthetics of Shadow Garden are very nice. Black and gold go very well together. Shadow is also someone who is very aesthetic. One of the minor villains in the series, he's voiced by Accelerator, and me and my friend just made multiple jokes like, yeah, I feel like Accelerator would approve of some of Sid's methods. Because, you know, Shadow, there's another organization, the Call of Diabolos kind of makes this fake Shadow Garden and tries to frame them for a lot of things, and Sid critiques them like, you're not supposed to wear black in the mid of fucking day, you idiots! So Sid just he cares a lot for aesthetics. And kind of, like, being dramatic. And that's with his, like, main ability. So yeah. I guess I'll talk about the main thing with Alexia. So, there's also somewhat a subplot with 2 sisters, Alexia and Iris, who are the main the princesses of the Midgard Kingdom. Alexia, at least at first, Alexia and Iris are very separated because, like, Alexia was always kind of in the shadow of her sister because Iris is one of the strongest swordswomen in the kingdom, if not the strongest. Although Claire might give her a run for her money, I don't know. And Current Rose would. But, you know, at least there's a lot of this inferiority complex because Iris is just such a good swordswoman. It's like she uses her magic so well, she fucking breaks. I was wondering, like, okay, you're the crown princess, yet you don't have a really cool sword. And it's because I feel like she would just break every sword she would... Because, like, we see this, like, she's practicing magic, and, like, one match she has later on in one of the tournaments. Yeah, because, you know, animes are... The classic, you cannot have an anime without a tournament arc. And Iris is just... So Aleti was always in her shadow, so she tried to, like, have the basics be her thing, which gained her the episode of, what was it, the Fencer Origina, or the fence... Basically, just the basic fencer, just because Alexia practices the foundations of fencing so cleanly that she just had the ordinary fencer. That's kind of what her epithet became. So yeah. Iris is, Iris also, and with Iris, she kind of feels disconnected from Alexia, because Alexia is very separated from her. It's kind of like, with Alexia to Iris, they're separated via their power, while to Iris, it's because Alexia doesn't really talk to them. After the first initial arc where Alexia gets kidnapped and then saved by Shadow, when he uses the thing for the first time. Again, saving that for the end of the video, because I saved the best for last. They start talking a bit more. There is a couple funny scenes with them. Also, I will say something about Shadow Garden that is rather impressive. Like, so, the main force of Shadow Garden kind of fuck off and leave Shadow / Sid, because Sid thinks the cult is bullshit. They think they're just playing along with his theatrics, but the cult is real, so they were actually going out to the cult, but they also formed a company called Mitsugoshi. Basically, Sid just rambled off a bunch of bullshit from our modern day, and they just managed in like 2 years to recreate all of it into a shopping mall. I will say, Gamma also does. She doesn't have a lot of role, but she's the one we kind of get to see more than the others, because she's the CEO of Mitsugoshi, which I believe is a joke on Mitsubishi. I believe. I don't know. There might be another company named similarly that they're play on. But she was the one that founded this, and I was like, well, she is intelligent. She's really fucking smart at that. But yeah, it's just funny that Sid just randomly rambles off shit from his world, and then the Seven Shadows just perfectly recreate it. Like in the Mitsubishi shopping mall, there's like modern day makeup, modern day clothing, and that kind of shit. I will also say something about Eminence and Shadow that does separate it from a couple other isekai. The world is fairly advanced, and I do like that, because a lot of isekais kind of have the same kind of setting of, like, it's like medieval. You have magic, but it's pretty much medieval. With this, it's like you have trains, guns exist, although the only ones we see are, like, flintlocks and, guns, and, why did I say rifles, stuff they would have in, like, I don't know, the Revolutionary War, flintlocks and muskets. But, and like, a lot of the architecture is more, like, modern. I assume that's because of Mitsugoshi. Because it's all Shadow's fault, which is funny. I should have said this earlier in the video, but I saw someone describe this anime in a very funny way, where it's just basically, like, if you're tired of watching just the same trashy isekai, Eminence and Shadow is just kind of Isekai New Game Plus, where it's basically just, it doesn't take itself seriously. Like, Sid doesn't fucking take it seriously. Because when Sid got isekai'd, he thought it was magic that transported him, not a fucking bus. Not Truck-kun killing him. Which I love that they completely off-screen Truck-kun. It's fucking hilarious. Then again, not every anime shows it, because, like, Mushoku Tensei never showed Rudeus getting isekai'd. But yeah. But yeah. Claire, another thing before I get into, like, some of the later stuff. Claire, is Sid's sister. She doesn't really do a lot, because I mainly think the author made Claire, and then realized if she ever fights Shadow, she's gonna know it's Sid. Which is what Volume 3 is for, because yeah, I won't get into that, but, yeah. Also, I was very surprised they actually revealed what, Diabolos was later on, because when they go to the Holy City, there's this trial called the Goddess's Trial, where basically people come in and fight, and they summon warriors from the past to fight. And, Shadow... Rose signs up Sid, and Sid's like, well, I could fight, and, reveal that I'm actually strong, or I could just run and be a coward, or 3, Shadow shows up. I don't know how no one figured that out, but it's funny. Shadow comes up, and he just fucking summons Aurora, the strongest witch in history, who, I believe, her epithet is the Witch of Destruction. No, that's Sasha's epithet. The Witch of Calamity, and then it's revealed at the end of the arc that she's Diabolos, the Demon King, or Demon Queen, I guess. There's also a lot of things kind of fight. This is also a world kind of like, I guess, that time I got reincarnated. No, fuck. That I Quit Heroing, where it's like, originally the world was like kind of advanced, and then they got nuked back to the medieval period. Because that's kind of like the truth of like the 3 heroes and the Demon King. They don't really go into it like that much, but they kind of hint at it, and you kind of find out the true aim of the cult, where they basically, they kind of got cells of the Demon King, and they try to perfect these drugs that make them immortal, but they can only make like 12 a year, so that's why there's only 12 members of the cult, 12 like heads of the cult. I believe this anime also takes some inspiration from Charlemagne's myths and the 12 paladins, because one of the heroes is called Oliver, and that was one of the paladins, and the cult is also the 12 rounds, because, the 12 paladins also did take from Arthurian myths, so kind of just the round table got turned into the 12 paladins when it got transferred over to France. So yeah. the cult doesn't... When you focus on the cult, you don't really get a lot of it. But yeah. I don't know. I do find Eminence and Shadow pretty entertaining. I guess I've rambled long enough that I should probably talk about the final thing. I Am Atomic. So, I'm pretty sure everyone, this is the thing everyone talks about besides Sid being a massive fucking edgelord, is, I Am Atomic. So, Sid kind of has this monologue in the first episode where, no matter how strong he gets, he can do nothing about a nuclear bomb. So he just comes to the conclusion, I have to become nuclear. I'm not joking, that's the conclusion he comes to. So he just... Also, the magic system really isn't fleshed out. From how my friend described it, it's basically just, as long as you have enough mana and you put your mind to it, you can just make it. Which is kind of... But I don't mind simple magic systems. Not every magic system... not every power system has to be as complicated as, Nen or Magic and Esper abilities in Tuaru, Not every power system has to be ultra complex. Some are allowed to be... I prefer simple. So I think it depends on the series. A series like Tuaru would be hurt if the power system wasn't as in depth as it was, but something like Eminence and Shadow and other isekais, you don't really need a really in-depth power system to get it across. Also, it's just funny. That's it. He's not even that. He's not even he didn't even reincarnate into that famous of a family. It's also funny that his name when he was in our world was Minoru Kageno, and he just so happens to get reincarnated into a family that has the surname of Kageno. That's just funny to me. This author, I will say, this author is funny at times. So I guess the best way I can describe I Am Atomic, which, by the way, the sound design is great whenever he says atomic. I can't recreate it here, but it's fucking phenomenal. Go watch the scene of it. It's fucking great. Something that... The reason it happens the first time is Sid, hates when people try and fight with borrowed power, because it's if you want to beat me with your own power. And so one of the members of the Round Table tries to fight him with the demon drugs, making him stronger, and he tries to say, this is almighty power, and Sid's just okay, you want to see almighty power? And just pulls off I Am Atomic and, nukes a part of the city. Because that's what I Am Atomic is. It's essentially a nuclear bomb spell. It's a giant fuck-off explosion. I don't know. And Sid apparently didn't kill anyone with the first, because I guess they did evacuate. It's also funny, because Iris also has a character arc where she kind of feels useless throughout the entire season, which does come into a head in the final thing. And then the second, and my favorite use of Atomic, is the all-range Atomic when he's fighting all the clones of Olivier. This video is a fucking rambling mess, but, I don't know. Rambling's fun, I guess. It's just fun whenever you can ramble about something. He purposely... Not only does he purposely get stabbed in the fucking chest by one of the Olivier clones, he fucking... The thing that makes the all-range Atomic so good, other than the dramaticness of it, is him getting stabbed through the heart by Olivia, and then just leaning in and going, I am Atomic, and then just fucking nuking the entire plane. And then there's the final episode. So, the final arc of the anime is a tournament arc where Sid disguises himself as a guy named Mundane Man. Yeah, as I said, the joke names. This is also the arc where Rose becomes a proper member of Shadow Garden, because she apparently got possessed. I don't know how that happened, but I assume I don't know how it happened, but I assume the light novel goes into more detail. I don't know if I'm going to read the light novel. I mean, it's only 5 volumes, so I might read it in my own time. But he kind of helps her, gives her some power, and then by the end of the season, Alpha recruits her into Shadow Garden. But he disguises himself as Mundane Man. He fights through the tournament. Everyone's baffled how such a weak guy is this strong. And then it comes to a head when he fights Iris. And the disrespect he shows Iris is fucking criminal. Because Iris tries to fight him, but she's just constantly pushed back because she keeps seeing images of her death. the first image, she sees her head get cut off, then her legs, then, like, one of her arms, her leg again, and she tries to fight against him, and he just beats her, and then he reveals himself as Shadow, and Iris loses her collective shit, because the final episode of the season is just Shadow fighting against a very pissed off Iris, and a character named Beatrix, the war goddess, who apparently is Alpha's aunt, I believe, because she's kind of been throughout the arc. She confronted Sid and was like, "You smell of elf. Do you know an elf that kind of looks like me?" And Sid's like, "Oh," like, in her, he probably is like, "Oh, you look like Alpha," but he's just like, "No," and she's just like, "I thought you were stronger." And then they eventually do fight, and there's a lot of disrespectful moments in this. And this is also where we get two really cool scenes with Sid. You get I forget the actual name of the scale, but it's basically just, it's better than a flash step, because Sid just because they're fighting on top of a roof when it's raining, and Sid just steps, no sound, and then just appears behind Beatrice. It is fucking terrifying. Because, like, flash stepping someone is already terrifying, but flash stepping someone when they can't even hear where you went is even more terrifying. But yeah, Shadow probably was very excited when Iris joined with an artifact, and then he fought against them, used the crowbars, used 2 crowbars to fight them. Literally 2 of the best sword users in the fucking world, and he's fucking beating their ass with crowbars. And then Iris kind of shouts, like, towards the end of the fight, it's like, "There's no way for you to run," and Sid kind of mocks her for that. Because it's like, why would I run? And threatens her with an atomic that nearly that covers the entire city. But he doesn't activate it. But he still uses the shockwave, which separates all the clouds. So yeah, I believe that's all. I believe that's everything I wanted to rant about. This might have been an all over the place video, but yeah, I would say Eminence and Shadow is definitely a trashy isekai, but it's an enjoyable trashy isekai. If you just want a series that's, like, not that serious and has pretty good fights, I also have to mention the soundtrack is fucking phenomenal. I think this is the same person who did the ReZero soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing. I don't think it's fully released yet, but I definitely want to give it a full listen when it's fully released. I will say, I'm not a fan of the opening visual-wise. It's nice and cute and all, but the song is pretty good, because it's done by the people who did the first, second, and fourth OPs for Overlord, which are, very good songs. So it was nice to hear another song done by them. Yeah. I don't know. I wanted to do this video. I want to do more of just on the cusp videos. Just like I have this series. I don't know if I'm going to do this for every series, but if I have, like, thoughts about a series, it's constantly, I probably will make a video about it. Also, something to just touch on before I end the video. I probably won't be making Eden Zero video. I probably will only make an Eden Zero video when the series ends, just talking about the final arc in general. So yeah, if you're wondering why I haven't reviewed Eden Zero for, like, the past 3 months, that's why the current arc is good, but I don't have an interest in reviewing it. I want to just put my focus on, like, Tuaru. So yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to rant about with Eminence and Shadow. If you've watched or read the series, what do you think about it? Do you think it's better than some of the other isekais? Do you think it's worse than some of the other isekais? So say the reason down below. And if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, and subscribe, do all that stuff. The Volume 11 video will probably be Thursday, because I'll be pretty busy Friday, or it might be Saturday. I don't know. I might save it for Saturday. I don't know. But I do plan to make the video this week. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. It's going to be a mid-arc. Supposedly one of the more... I don't know how good the light novel version is, but the anime version was fine. But yeah. I guess that's all I have to do for this video. I guess this is my second rambling video, because my first one's on Mihoyo. So, yeah, that's a video, do all that YouTube stuff. This will be Neo, signing out.